the first one. We'll use the expenditure approach, the income approach, and of course, the production approach. Most of you know them. When you talk about GDP, there are those three things we put across. And forgive me, I'm starting with jargons. They'll make the point that I came to present here today. But we need to start there. When we talk about expenditure approach in measuring the wealth of a country and the growth of the GDP. So we see GDP is equals to what? We condense it to few variables because all the other variables will feed into that. We say it is consumption, this water I'm consuming, the clothes, the food you're eating here, the fuel. We say is GDP, you measure it using consumption, plus private investments, plus G. G is government. Government, G you can always substitute it to B. It is budget. What we read as budget is what is called G. And then plus net exports, which is, you put a bracket, X representing exports minus M representing imports. Reflect about that. Now, let's forget that we learned it in class. Just reflect now that you are already a CPA and an FCPA who is already working. Now, detach yourself from class now to a policy maker in your respective area. That what influences the economy is how we consume, plus how we invest, how we consume privately. Those are households and farms. Plus how we invest privately. Those are private investments. Plus then G, how the government spends money. Plus X minus M. What does that tell you? That all those variables are very important for an economy to grow. And we'll see how other economies have grown using those. So when you talk about growth of the economy, and you're still talking about deficit in our payments, trade with other countries, what are we really saying? When you talk about growth of GDP, and you are talking about decelerating private investments, what are we saying? Now that part we call G is what we look for and we look out to, all of us. How much is the budget? The GDP of many countries, the budget and the government expenditure only constitutes from around 17 to 25%. Can you imagine that? That the money we read as the budget, let's say 4.2 trillion, if you do the math, it will always constitute around 17 to 25% of the entire wealth. So it's about where we want to incentivize that matters, because the size is too small. Let's go to the second one. And the second one is the income approach. Income approach measures what? And by the way, the one I talked about expenditure is expending on the finished products. Economy uses finished products, not intermediate ones. The other one is what? Income. So when we talk about economic growth using the income approach, what do we measure with? Incomes. Can one of you just shout with a raise of hands kindly? Any kind of income you know about in the economy, or you as a person? Yes, my brother? Salary. Yes, that's called wages. That's good. Number two. Actually write that. That's part of it. Wages is the return of labor. Is what you are paid to offer your labor.
Interest income.
Interest income. Very good. Write that. By the way, you are already economists, you guys. Number three.
Farming income.
Farming income. That must be specific. You call it profit. Now, you don't call it farming income, call it profit. Remember, we are dealing with final incomes. So what you call now, the return of capital is called profit. So holistically call it profit. Even interest income is also part of it, what was said by my sister. The other one? Dividends. You can call it dividends, but it may form part of the profits. But just write it. Rent. Remember, rent is an income to the landlord. It's also a return of capital into some way. Any other? Let me see whether we've forgotten. Taxes. Tax is an income to government. Remember, government is also an agent of the economy. They receive, they expend. They are also part of the G up there. I hope you have gotten what I mean. The incomes, we measure the incomes received, we aggregate them. That is also a measure of how the GDP is performing. Even subsidies is an income to the recipient. When the government, for example, gives a Nuga subsidy, it's not the shopkeeper who is receiving the subsidy. It is you, the end consumer. So it becomes an income. Now, let's go to the final one, so that now I go to the main point. This is just the groundwork. The other one is called the production approach. And to me, this is usually the most important. And we'll dwell most of our points around this one. Production approach of the economy measures all the goods produced at the final level, but it segments them per sector. It segments those per sector. But there are only 3 sectors in this approach. One is called primary production. What is primary production? Primary production is anything in any sector that gives or produces commodities without any value adding. So one is agriculture. When you eat a mango, it is all natural. But when you take mango juice, it ceases to be the primary production. When you dig mchanga ya kujenga, that is also a resource. So to that extent, then, agriculture is one part of primary production. Mining is also part of primary production. Kwa sababu, just ukinunua mawe, simeshika? Ukinunua mawe ya darugo, nilikuwa nimesema hiyo kwa sababu watu wanasema mahiga ya darugo. Ukinunua mawe ya darugo, what are you buying? Have you ever asked yourself, you know why human beings sometimes we just dump how we are creators? Just look at this house. What has a human being created in this house? Just ask yourself,